Okay, so just review something we taught in Monday. Okay, so first, what's the data structure? What's the data structure? What do you think? Yeah, Katie. The way to save data. Okay, so we have a different way to store the data. They may have different performance, right? Based on different way you store the data. Okay, so in Monday's class we talk about two different structure, right? To match to find the route from one location to another one, right? So these two different structures we have, they may perform different solution for you, right? For example, the structure A, if I ask for, okay, how many routes from home to the different destination. For the A, it's very easy, you can find, right? As long as you find the location home, then you can just know, okay, there's three routes, right? But for the structure B, you need to go over all the data, right? So the data 1, 2, 3, okay, which means you need to go over all the record to find the root, right? But for the structure A, the only thing you need to do just to find the location, right? The worst case, the home at the last row, right? Which means you have to go over everything, then you find the home, right? This is the worst case. But for the structure B, no matter what, you need to go over every record, right? So it depends how you define the problem. Then you need to design your own data structure to help you to find the right solution, the right structure. Okay. Then we talk about array. So we know array or array list. So they basically they has a fixed size, right? So I gave the example, say, okay, there's a bench. This bench only allowed 5 people to sit. What if there's two additional people come? So basically there's 7 people, right? Can we do something like this? Add one more bench in the array? The answer is no, right? Because array, the size is fixed. Okay? The only thing you can do, you just purge a new bench, which allowed at least 7 people to sit. Right? Obviously, this is not very efficient way, right? You cannot just to grab a new one, to design or customize a new one to do this. So in the class example, I talk about array. they need extra space to extend their size, right? That is not very efficient, because everyone knows in a computer, the memory is very valuable, right? If your memory is limited, which means your computer will get slow, right? So the memory in computer is very valuable. You need to make sure your computer, your application is very efficient to run on any computers. Right? So then we talk about the example. No matter a keychain or pure necklace, if you want to insert one or take off one of them, you have to pull all the things out, then add, then pull everything in the same order, right? That is not very efficient. So we try to find a better data structure to store the data without occupying more space in your memory, right? So we come up with this example. If people grab each hand together, the only thing they need to know whose hand they want to link, right? So the example, something like this is David's hand, okay? David, only thing you need to know who's the next hand to grab him hand, right? So it's D, so David need to know, okay, Jim will be next hand. So this is Jim, right? And Jim will know next hand would be Bryce, right? Then Bryce need to know Eric, right? So each hand, they only two things they need to know. First, who are you? Second, which hand to be next, right? They don't have to know other things. This gave us a picture, something like this. If each hand is an object of the hand, so this object, this object should be, okay, contain the property, the hand name, and the reference to the next hand, right? So in this semester, we only do is one direction linked list, okay? Which means you don't have to think about who is the tail, okay? The last one always be tail, okay? Then we talk about something, okay? How you insert head, okay, in the linked list. If we consider this is a linked list, so in this linked list, what do we already know? We know who is head, right? Who is head? Who is head? James, right? And we know how they link them together, right? Because Jim will know Tim's hand will be next. Then Tim will know Jamie will be next. Jamie will know there's nothing. to the next. Right? So if we want to insert one more, okay, people's hand as a head, what do we need to do? We just create a new one, right? Right? And give a name for this one. Okay, maybe Hannah. Once we know the Hannah, we need to tell Hannah whose hand will be next, right? Obviously, we want hand to be the head. So Hannah's next one should be head, which is James' one, right? Once we know the James one, so they would link together. The last step in this linking list, we should let Hannah know you are the head. Right? Then we talk about how you create, how you insert something between the hand. Right? For example, over here. Before we're doing this, we know Jim is the head, right? We want to insert one more between Jim and the team. So you need to create a new one, which is Eva, right? You give a name, Eva. At this time, Eva don't know whose hand should be next, right? So we sign that, okay? So we want to insert between Jim and the team. So team will be next, right? At this time, also head, they need to change, right? Because original, the head would be the team's head, right? Right now, we need to let Jim know, okay, the next hand should be Ava. Then we link them together. Okay? So how about insert last? If I want to insert a new one, okay? B. How you insert B as a tail? How? Bryce? Right here. Change to B's hand. Right? But this is something we already know. Who is the tail? Right? Right? Because we know Jimmy is a tail, right? It's the last one. But from programming perspective, most people has no idea who would be the tail. How you find the tail? How can you find the tail? David? They point to the node, right? You need to find the one hand which point to nothing. Then we can determine this is a tail, right? Then using the tail to point a new one, right? Okay, let's summarize, okay? If we only do the insert first, the first step, we need to create a new hand object, right? The second step, make this new hand know who hand would be next, right? Then that this new hand know it will be the head, right? Then the insert last. The insert last we create a new one, right? Then tell the original tail, okay? Find the original tail, then link original tail to the new hand, right? And make sure the new hand will be point to nothing. All right? So then we take a look how we implement them. So anyone try to implement them in the code? Yes? Okay. Let's see. How do I do this? Okay. The first, we need a class for hand, right? Because this class would try to help you to give a name, right? And tell you which hand should be next, right? If this is a hand, the first you need to know the name, right? The second, who would be next hand, right? So this is a class we need. First, the hand's name, right? The second, next hand. Okay, here interesting part. The data type for the next. What's the data type? Hand, right? It's hand itself. Because this one will refer a hand, right? Instead of name, right? Okay, once you know that, we have a constructor. In this constructor, we want user give a name to this hand, right? And without give next hand. That's the reason over here. Once you create a hand, they have a name and no next hand reference, right? So which means you have this one to create a new one. In a new one, you have a name, maybe B, okay? And there's no anything to point. It's just completely empty individual, right? With a name. Okay, once you get that, you have a get name, get next, set next. Okay, it's for getter and a setter, right? Once you create a hand, you need to link them together, right? The easy way, okay, link them together, easy way. We just create 3 different objects, right? Give Jim, Tim, Jamie, right? These 3 lines tell us, okay, we create these 3 different objects with a name, right? Jim, Tim, and Jamie, right? How we link them together? How do we link them together? How? Look at this code. How do we link them together? Set next. right? So in the set next, you know the parameter have to be hand, right? Because our property hand. Next, okay, the data type is hand. So the parameter, you need to use hand, right? Back to this example. How do we link them together? How? Which method we should use? For example, I want the gym link to team. How to link? Using code. Which method we should use? We should use set next, right? Because set next will tell this object which hand it should link, right? Right? So if it's A dot set next, okay, A is Jim, right? So we'll tell Jim, okay, next hand you should link is hand B. So hand B is team, right? So we link them together. Right? The hand B dot set next. Okay, dot B hand B is team, right? Team's hand. Sets next to the hand C. The hand C is Jamie, right? Then link them together. Okay, the next one is hand C. The hand C point to nothing, right? So the next would be no. Right? That makes sense? Make sense? But is that deep? This is a linked list? No. Because this is only tell us, okay, how we link them together, but didn't give us any method how you insert head between or tail, right? How you insert a new one as a head? How? How? Someone will say, okay, you just link to the Jamie, right? Right? Because we know Jamie is a head. But the answer is no. You don't know. You have no idea. Because this one, this visualization, we just demonstrate based on code. If you want to insert, you need to find the head first. Right? How to find the head? Right? Even though how you find the tail. Not just you look at this picture, you say, okay, tail would be the Jamie, right? You need to use algorithm to tell who is the head, who is the tail. Then you add a new one to them, right? This we should create a class. This class is linked list to tell you who is the head and what any operations they need help. Right? So this class, the property would be head. So which means this linked list with things, this whole list, the individual, all individual, link them together, same them as a linked list, as a whole body, not individual. Right? So if we same them as a whole body, you know who is the head. Right? Right? So for example, if you want to create a waiting list, how you create a waiting list? This waiting list, they should have a property. Who would be the head? Who would be the tail? Right? It's not just the individual. Right? If you go to somewhere, you want to purchase a new released video game, you join the waiting list, right? So this waiting list should return, okay, who would be the head, right? This is the same thing. For the list, for the linked list, you need to tell this list who would be the head. Then you add different operation to this linked list, right? This is the operation. Insert first. As we said, insert first. We need insert a new one, okay, as a head, right? What do we need to do? This is a method you should write into the linked list class. Insert first. Just think about insert first. First step, we need to create a new one, right? Right? The second step, we need to tell which hand should be next. Right? Right? Then you need to let this new one, okay, as a head. Right? Okay, look at this code. In this code, first, the parameter. The parameter is a name, right? It's a string. The first line. What's the first line tell us? Right? We create a new hand, right? What's the name for a new hand? The user trying to insert, right? Right? What's the next step? The next step we have if else, right? What's the if statement tell us? What's the if statement tell us? What you can interpret. if head, okay, whether is equal to no. What that mean? Price. New hand become hand. What's the condition? What time the new head becomes a head? Right. If this linked list, there's no head to be assigned yet. Right? What that mean? So we're trying to create a linked list, right? But linked list as the first initially, okay, there's nothing inside there, right? So which means there's nothing. So head will point to nothing, right? So at this time, we find out, okay, this linked list, there's no head. So anything you want to insert, they would be the head, right? Okay. So this is if statement tell us, okay, if there's no head, if there's nothing in this list, a new one will be the head, right? What's the else tell us? The else will say, yes, there's something in the linked list. We already have a head, which means as a list we have one hand, right? One node in the linked list, right? Then this new hand will set next. What's set next? We'll let head to be the next, right? And the head will assign the new hand to be head, right? That makes sense? Here's one question. Can I switch these two lines order? Can I switch these two lines order? No? No? Everyone's no? Okay. So first, we're using the order we need, okay? Next head, that's next to the head, right? So in this else statement, we assume this linked list has at least one hand, right? So list A, okay? We have one hand. Maybe just A, okay? So this is a head, right? So we can tell, okay, this is linked list A. Then we add a new one. It's new head, right? The new head, list line, new head. Okay, for example, this is new. Okay, and we set next to the head, right? So the head is A, right? It's A. We link them together. The next step, head would be new head. So basically, we tell them the new one would be head. Okay, so these orders make sense. If I change the order, what if I change the order? I change the order. So first line will be say head is equal to new hand. What that mean? We move head to this one, right? So right now, the head is new one. The next step, new hand sits next to the head. Who is the head? New one. So new one's next is new one. So basically, they didn't link them together. Right? That makes sense? Okay, so make sure you need to understand the order. Okay? Then we're trying to test the code. Okay? Test the code. So in this code, we have linked list class, right? And the linked list class, we have a method. It's called insert first. Okay? So I just zoom out this one in here. Right? Okay. The first step, I create a list there, right? Create a linked list. Once we create a linked list, what do we have? We would have a head, right? This step, you have a head. Then you assign a head, right? Yes? This is reason over here. Name is no. Right, next is no. So basically, there's nothing assigned to the head in the first line, right? That makes sense? The second step, we're trying to insert a new one as a first, as a head, right? So which will give us, lead us to this insert first method. Okay, insert first method. The first line, we create a new head, right? And give a name. Name is Jane, right? So right now you have Jane. As first beginning, the hand will point to nothing, right? Okay, then go to the if statement. The if statement will say whether head is equal to none. Okay, what's the head right now? Who is the head? Nothing, right? The head is nothing. So we will get into the if statement, right? And assign the new head as a head, right? Then go to the next line. List dot insert first team. So for the team, you will create a new one, right? Then we check whether this list has a head or not. Obviously, right now, the head is Jim, right? So we will get into the else statement. The else statement, who is new one? Who is new head? team, right? So team dot next is head. So who is head? Who is head right now? James, right? So James is head, right? We link them together and assign the new hand to the head, right? Yes? That makes sense? Okay. Try to design your own way, okay, to be the insert last method. As we said, okay, you need to create a new hand. And this new hand, okay, should be the next hand for the original tail, right? But here is one more thing. How to find the tail, right? How? Yes. The one is not, right? So how? What kind of code you can use? Okay, look at this example. So let's link a list, right? So we need to make sure this is something we need. How we find this? How do we find the last one? So we need a pointer to help you. What is pointer? So they will go here. First, we will trouble every element in this list, right? The first element, we check the next, right? Because the hand in this class, we have name and we have next, right? And each of them we have a set and get, right? What do we need to do? We know this is the head, right? Right? Okay. So this is C. We need to determine C would be the head, right? Right? The first step. The second step. C get next. What that mean? What that mean? You need to know this hand. Who would be the next hand? Right? So what this one will return? No? Currently, this is the head, right? So what's this head? It's next. B. Right? name, nest, right? C.getNest is equal to the value is B, right? Right? Okay. So what's the condition? We should move in, just to move forward. Or what's the condition? We need to stop there. Yes. If this one is not equal to none, we should keep continually to the next one, right? Okay. This is a condition. If it's not, next is not equal to none, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? We need to move forward, right? So C should point to the next one, right? How to point? We sign them. How to sign? Right? Yes? So if they are not equal to the none, we assign the next one to the C. So C would move to the B. Right? Yes? At the same time, we call the get next again. Right? So what's the next for the B? What's the next for the B? C. Is that equal to the none? No, right? So it's a return true, right? Return true again. We do this method again. We assign the next to the current one, right? Which move to here, right? Right? Then we do this step again. Get nest. What's the nest for the C? Bingo. Right? We find the one we need. So we find the tail. Who's the tail? C. Right? Once we know the C, it should be easy. You point to a new one, right? That makes sense? This is a code. Okay, the first step, we create a new one, new hand, right? The second step, we create a current one as a pointer, right? So first pointer, we should point to the head, right? So again, if there's nothing in the list, we do the same thing, okay? The new one would be the head. Otherwise, you need looking for the tail, right? How you look for the tail? The loop, the while loop. In this loop, we'll keep continually to find the next, whether next is the none, right? If it's not, we will move forward to the next until you find something is none, right? Once you find that one, you know the current one is the tail, right? You will jump out the while loop and set next to the new one, right? Question? Question? So here's very important part. You need to find. You need to set a pointer. Second, you need to make this pointer move until you find the tail hand, right? Which we use while loop. Correct? Once you find the tail, make this tail point to the new one. Right? Make sense, everyone? So this code does make sense to you? Okay. So we just keep continue, okay? So for this code, the first line we create as a list. In a list, you will create a head, right? So initially, there's nothing signed to the head, right? So head is none. The next line, we insert last, which is Jim, right? So the first we create a new one, it's Jim. We sign the current one as a head. So currently, who is the head? No one, right? So current is no one. Okay? Then we go into if else statement. So the if statement, head is none. We sign the new one as a head, right? So currently head is none, right? So this new one would be the head, right? Then go to the next slide. Next slide, team. We insert a team, okay? Then we go to here. We create a new one named team, right? Then we assign the head to the current. Okay, who is head right now? Jim, right? So current is Jim, right? Okay, so we go to the else statement. In the else statement, we try to find who is the tail, right? Right? Okay, so current is equal to team, right? So team's next. What's the value for the team's next? What's the next? What's the value we return? No, right? This one will return none. Directly go to this statement, right? And assign to the next new hand. Who is new hand? Team. Right? Look at this one. Then we link them together. And Tim as the last, right? One more line. We want to add Jamie as the last. Create a new one. And current as a head. So head is Jane, right? Then we go to else statement. We're trying to find the tail, right? The current is Jim, right? The Jim's next is Tim, right? So obviously it's not equal to none. So we try to move to the next one, right? The current's next one. The current's next one is Tim, right? We move to the team. Then we check Tim's next, whether it's equal to none or not, right? Okay, what's the value? What's the next for the team? None. So which will go to the next statement, right? We find a tail and make tail point to the new hand. Right? That makes sense? Makes sense? Okay. So in the linked list, we use the node, okay, for each individual hand. Okay? So if we talk about the linked list, each class we think they are node, okay, not hand. I'm using a hand for you guys to understanding easily, okay, using that picture, okay? But in the textbook or in the industry, we just talk about, we use them as a node, okay? You can talk about this concept as a node, okay? But in the real life, in some the project, you can create the similar data structure, okay? That makes sense? There's an other way you can do. Okay, for example, over here, for the linked list class, you can define a head and a tail at the same time, right? But it's more complicated. All right? Any question? No? How many of you complete the assignment? Okay, it will be due, right? This week. Just to make sure your start as list, finish the first one right now, and doing the last part, okay, which is the recursion, right? How many of you like problem with the first one? Like count how many background? Yes.
I have a question. So do we have to create a new list? I think it's one of the part. Do we have to create a new list which only takes into account the virtually, whatever that word is?
You don't have to create a new list.
Or like retrieve data and make it into a new list. That's what I.
Okay. Let's talk about this one. So for the first part, you have a file, right? This file is CSV, right? File. We're using a comma to separate them, right? Once you open this, you will see there's different column, right? If you visualize them. The edges, maybe district, something, right? You need to read each column. But the most important column, it would be this one. Description of a criminal, right? Because this one contains the keyword you need to look for, which is bodily, right? For example, in this one, there's a bug root. And something, okay? You need to find the list record, compare with the keyword, right? The keyword buggery. There's two options, right? Using the equal method or using the contain method. Which one you should use? Contain, right? As long as this description contains this keyword, we count them as one, right? Then you count everything out. Then you have a counter number, which is how many criminal cases related to the bug, right? Yeah, does it make sense?
So for last part, I think if you have stated, do we have to like extract data or the people or the amount of variables where there was burglary?
Yes, you need to pull out all of them to create a new file, right?
Got it, yeah.
So what that mean? As long as this one is content, for example, this record the content of buggery, you increase the count and retrieve this all data to write into a new CSV file, right? So you need to use the write file and print file, right? So basically you need to read and compare and write the result into a new one, right? So this assignment will just use both of them. Okay? Make sense?
What's the point of doing it in Java when you can do it in Excel far quicker?
What point?
Yeah, like why it's not time efficient to do it in Java, I think.
Because you need to know this process. So each steps, right? The first step, read the file. Second step, read which one you need, right? You probably in this one, in the Java, you need more, maybe 10 lines. But in the Python, you maybe using 3 lines, right? But Python, they implicate, they just symbolize all the steps into one step, right? But it's not the purpose. As the beginner, you should know all the steps first. Maybe for the later in the future, someone tell you, okay, there's a new method, you can do this very quickly. But you know how to do this process. What's the process you need, right? Hey, any question? Okay, that's for class today. Thank you.